Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
If your great goal in a state or a county is to replace the family in its most essential function, then you will create something which is impersonal by design. It's impersonal by design because it operates with a kind of unhuman or inhuman purpose or goal. It is a goal that is administrative, it is ideological, it is industrial in a way, and the family has to be left aside, and that requires scale, and of course, scale impresses the commoner. The ordinary hillbilly is going to be impressed by the size of your operation. Now, if your operation is school, that is the instrument to which I'm referring. You have a very, very large system. In our county, it's the largest employer, the biggest corporation, and takes half of the proceeds of taxation, and is impersonal. And it has a mission that you, my listener, mistake. You mistake the mission of public schools, and as Americans have for decades. Since the 1840s, the public school theory from Horace Mann got its good kick up into success, into the establishment. He wrote the 7th annual report to the Massachusetts Board of Education in 1843, and he and other kind of Marxists were hoping for the Prussian model, what we now call German, the Prussian model, to be brought to our shores. The Americans adopted the Prussian model with some threats, some coercion, and they were sort of bought. They bought into the idea that with immigrants coming here, we need to make them all like us, right? We need to homogenize immigrants rather than let them find their own destinies in this great block of earth that is North America. So we all got onto this schooling bandwagon and giving the state authority over school systems. And we have now a system that is deliberately designed to produce mediocre intellects, to hamstring the inner life, John Taylor Gatto says, to deny students appreciable leadership skills, and to ensure docile and incomplete citizens, all in order to render the populace more manageable. And that is what that system here in this county, which is a manifestation of the state, that is the system over which we have the good government of the past years under a very expensive contract of Dr. Rick Smith. He is the pea on the basketball. Whether he's a rotten pea or a rich, nutritious pea doesn't really matter. There's little he can really do to affect the movement of the nature of the basketball beneath it. And that's because he represents, he doesn't represent the bureaucracy. He represents the face on the bureaucracy. It's kind of a different function. It's kind of the marketing function. And he's being ousted, and his pay is almost at 200,000 paper dollars a year. And the rape case that brought about his demise, of course, has been filling the news cycles for weeks now here in Chattanooga in what is a national story. And we have to try to evaluate whether or not this resignation, the scandal behind it really is that big. Think for a second on the scale question. If Rick Smith were the superintendent of a private board of families that had, let's say, maybe 50 or 60 families, and from that number, 9 had been elected to a board of that particular school, his resignation because of a crime taking place under his watch would not be a big deal. It would certainly make the paper, but not everyone would be invested in the story. Why? Because it's a private school, right? It's a school of, say, a religious minority or an ideological grouping, maybe a school dedicated to immigrants of a certain kind. Maybe it was a Muslim school. Maybe it was a school of descendants of Swiss immigrants out at Grootley Lager, right? And so it wouldn't be such. No one would have such an investment in the scandal and the resignation and the buyout of that particular man. Why? Because he represents a private interest. But here he represents the interest of ostensibly everyone, right? The public interest, and the system that he works in has many purposes. And if you read into the academic literature about schooling, the history of pedagogy in America, the necessity of things, for example, of functional illiteracy. You think functional illiteracy is a problem? It's not a problem. That's the way it's supposed to be. Public education, through the adoption of the Look-Say method back in the late 20s, was an intentional policy, and the havoc it has wreaked on the American mind, on the American man, since that time, long traced by military testing of recruits, if you want to look into some of that, has shown a long-term decline of capacity, intellectual capacity, reading capacity. And a man who can't read and doesn't read is the man who's going to be led. And that is that type of person, that type of man is the one intended to come out of the public school, because the system is based on the need for human management by the commercial and industrial cartels, the commercial and banking and financial interests of the country. You think this is a free market analysis, okay? This is not the Marxist analysis. This is the free market analysis that sometimes your left wing will borrow from. They should be doubted, I would suggest, because their solution is always more commercial government, more borrowing, more taxation to fix, right, the problems brought into their interventionistic structure, their structure that intervenes, as I say, into the family. Education is part of the welfare of a child, and the family is, as R.J. Rushdoony, one of my favorite authors, says, the greatest welfare agency and the most successful. Even now, despite the two-income necessity, and despite the depopulation mentality that has affected thousands and thousands of people you might know, or you could know, you, my listener, it is still the most successful. Even when you have the single mom, right? Even there, the family is more successful in raising, or should I say, rearing a boy or girl than the state. What the federal government has done in welfare is small and trifling, he says, compared to what the families of America do daily, caring for their own, relieving family distresses, providing medical care and education for one another, and so on. No civil government could begin to finance what the families underwrite daily. The family's welfare program, for all its failures from time to time, is proportionately the world's most successful operation by an incomparable margin. This is David Tulis, and we're brought to you by Choo Choo Barbecue in Hickson, Choo Choo Barbecue of Hickson, with a great catering service. Catering at Choo Choo Barbecue, the best in pork, chicken, or beef, with a secret rub and a delicious smoked flavor. The number to get the delivery for your next event is 870-7894. That's 870-7894. And just go in for lunch. Terrific lunch. And you will, I promise you, not be disappointed by the fare served up with good cheer at Choo Choo Barbecue. My name is David Tulis, and I'd like to remind you that if you want to be the man who is armed and who prays, you can support your endeavors in that regard by taking the Tennessee handgun permit class, the Tennessee handgun permit class for the concealed carry licensee of the good people at the Department of Safety and Homeland Security. Take that at Carter Shooting Supply and Range. That's Carter Shooting Supply and Range, where you're going to get the ammo, great prices on ammo, great prices on handguns. And I heard from Eric Judd that Carter has just brought in a whole line of pistols for her in colors. Is there a pink 9mm? Well, you can go to Carter Shooting Supply and find out whether that's a revolver or an automatic. I'll let you go and find out. Okay, that's at Carter Shooting Supply. This is David Tulis, and the system in Hamilton County with its crisis, the rape crisis, is a terrific story. The man who superintends the intentions of all others, right? His intention overrides those of common sense teachers and lower bureaucrats and parents. Rick Smith, he's in negotiations now for a buyout that will approach 300,000 paper dollars and another $75,000 in benefits. David Carroll is reporting this. He is probably the leading journalist in Chattanooga, And but David Carroll, we have to understand that journalism, modern journalism, is set in a paradigm that the news dictates. Right, the news dictates. We have a public school, and David is in that perspective. He says there's a gloomy mood inside the matrix, if you will, and he's not. It's not his purpose to show you what's outside the matrix. Right, his purpose is not to give you either the red or the blue pill. That you have to go elsewhere for that. But he, well, okay, well, all right. If you take the right pill, right? If you take the right pill, you'll see other things. You'll see things kind of around the corner. Okay, around the corner, and there is the solution. Thereupon is the solution for these interventionist disasters in the marketplace, which we would want to suggest, just mildly suggest, is public education. That would be life of the private person, right? Local economy, what the French call System D. System D is the free market. It's also called, by those who disparage the free market, it's called the gray economy, the black market, the underground economy. Those are burgeoning in the digital world. There are digital marketplaces that you can't even imagine are there, across the transoms of which pass millions and millions of units. I don't say dollars, because the units are not necessarily dollars. It could be Bitcoin. They could be other thing, trades and services, contracts, and so on for services and products, all encrypted. Right. This is a world that your son probably knows something about. Your daughter, right, the smart one, who's going to be getting out of Chat State this year and going to UTC. She knows about things like that. Okay, I know she's not wasting her time on the computer. You're going to have to just believe her. Okay, believe her that she's not wasting her time on her computer, but she's entering into that market. The Etsy world writ deep. Now so David is telling us about the buyout for Rick Smith, and we have a caller, and this is David Tulis. What's on your mind? You're live on Hot News Talk Radio.
Hey, David, great subject. People are getting hot under the collar with what happened with Testament last night. He was a raving, loudmouth lunatic, chastising parents for wanting answers and a resignation. This was like watching the Politburo. And let me tell you, Chattanooga politicians, school board members have gotten away with this far too long, the old boys network, and it's over. These kids were allegedly raped. They are elected official civil servants beholden to the people, and they don't quite get that. They need a swift kick in the butt. And this guy was a raving lunatic chastising parents for wanting the resignation of Smith. The buck stops with him. I say pay him nothing, fire him, investigate him, possibly prosecute him for wrongdoing. If he's in charge of this, he should have put systems in place to prevent it. There were parents complaining about bullying for years, and they did nothing. The school system is impotent. It needs to go, and this guy needs to go.
Well, I think the caller is making too much of the guilt of Dr. Smith. I would say Dr. Smith is just a bureaucrat. He's an administrator at the top. Many of the things that happened were way beyond his notice. After all, he's paid $200,000 so that he doesn't have to worry about the details. He has the large system in his view. It's interesting when I was mentioning about the paradigm, the public school paradigm in which David Carroll, our probably the city's most important journalist, operates, is visible elsewhere. And just hang on here, and while you're thinking about it, just as I'm segueing from one segment to the other, just ask yourself, wait a minute. Did I get my heating unit checked? Now back to the point about this paradigm. Right? Paradigm is simply a word for the philosophical framework in which you operate. And if you have it, and it goes back to your presuppositions about truth, I guess ultimately about God. That's the main one upon which every other presupposition flows, right? Your presupposition of why am I here? What's the most important thing? Your presuppositions they make your paradigm. They let you see certain things and they prohibit you from seeing other things. Okay. So what I hope to help you with, my listener, is my presuppositions are a little different from yours. So maybe together, you, my listener, and me, David Tulis, or I, David Tulis, can see our way through and not be as devastated by the coming disaster as we deserve to be. Okay, we deserve to be devastated in the coming disaster, but it won't happen so badly if we can just kind of see where to go, and maybe follow my general suggestion of divesting national and investing local, doubting the good people and having confidence. I would suggest in God, but God and local solutions to national problems, which all have their local manifestations. Well, David Carroll is in the matrix, sort of, and of course I am too. I'm trapped also. But there's a group. Here's the critics of public schools from within, as David Carroll are, as these hundreds of angry parents. They're all within the framework of being in the system, right? They can't see the solution as being the marketplace and the withering away of the state, the dream that Karl Marx had. Right? Of course, he was borrowing from Christianity and not believing in it, though, but he borrowed from it of the need, of the eventual need of such reform of the human being that there would not need to be a government, right? There would not need to be a state, because everyone would have internal government, it's self-government. But the stories we're going to have to get to are in the news today, and they're about Chattanooga 2.0 and this ambitious plan, effort to create an ambitious action plan. The headline of the press release says, to improve education workforce throughout Hamilton County. 4 work groups tackle key areas of opportunity. Well, what I like about this is I like, in one sense, we can only applaud the people who are behind this, because they mean well. They mean very well. Jared Bigham speaking yesterday at the Chattanooga Rotary Luncheon for Chattanooga 2.0. He's the coordinator, and this group has launched a website with a lot of air in it, a lot of colored air, and some big type. And the goal is to have in 100 days come up with an action plan. Okay, it's wonderfully optimistic. It's wonderfully naive, I think, and cheerfully naive. And we can only be glad that we have people like that here in Hamilton County and Chattanooga. And we need more of them. We need more people like Jared Bigham in Hamilton County, because their desire to improve things, their hope, their thinking that if we just work on this, that we can make a difference in the picture that I drew, the picture of the basketball with the P on top, right? That's the superintendent at the top, waving his hands, making directives, trying to change the nature of the basketball beneath him, which he can do maybe slightly, right? He can cast a shadow longer this way or that way, or make a little water drop go one down among one set of grooves versus another. That's about it. That's about all he can really do, for good or for worse, right? And this effort, this internal inside of the matrix effort, has just this wonderful idea of reform. And you'll have to go to the Chattanooga Time Free Press website to read about it. But he says, for example, we have the opportunity to create a path forward that will bring 8,000 adults out of poverty. We can do that by achieving the goal of 75% of our residents obtaining a post-secondary credential. That's part of it, making schooling longer. Each work group has a charge to be creative, bold, and set objectives that are aspirational. He says they will be looking at successful programs in other communities, things that may never have been tried, and asking what will work. We're looking at anything and everything that can make a difference and change lives and outcomes for Hamilton County students. Well, there's a bit of pragmatism stirred into that sauce. If it works, let's do it. But the question is, you have a reform effort. This is, again, coming from the outside against the side of a battleship whose steel hull is 16 inches thick in steel, right? It resists torpedoes, it resists kamikazes, and the rest. And here we have a very well-intentioned group thinking to make a difference, right? Trying to get parents involved in making a difference in the machine, not changing the machine, not altering the substance, not taking any of the religious ground out from under it, the philosophical presuppositions out from under it. No, we have what we have. We have effectively a national economy system here, a satellite. The mothership is in Washington and Nashville, and we are here, and we're going to make things so that we will be better for it. Our efforts will make the system better, and we are going to bring about some minor reform, and suddenly the mood will be better. David Carroll will have only good cheer to report. on television and on his blog. This is David Tulis. I'm not that optimistic.
Mr. Leon, let those boys have a bud.